was his forte against Jan Christoph, and you can see the players have kicked off, and Duda has gone for a very solid opening, the Petrov defence.
Yeah, and it feels like Duda, after the kind of roller coaster of the last two games, that emotional journey that he went on, winning twice in a row, actually leading in today's match, he's taken a step back. He's going back to his favourite opening repertoire. He plays this opening, the Petrov opening, when he just wants a draw. So Duda is just trying to be as solid as possible. And look how symmetrical the position is right now. Once the black king castles, this is still quite well known, this position. And Duda using that solid repertoire. The problem for Duda, maybe, is that Magnus Carlsen prepared this a lot during the World Championship match against Jan Nepomniachtchi, who was also reliant on the Petrov defence. So, okay, some pieces coming off potentially in the next few moves. I actually studied this position just 2 weeks ago. I was planning to play it from the black side, but it felt a bit miserable. Black is fighting for equality because white's pieces are slightly better placed, especially the white rook on the central file. White's dark squared bishop about to jump out as well. And yeah, I just felt a bit uncomfortable from the black side when I was studying this. But Duda, look at the speed he's been playing at, 16 minutes. It looks like he's very, very confident. Magnus, meanwhile, the question for him is not just the position on the board, which is roughly balanced. For Magnus, it's all about recovery, trying to get back kind of on a stable mindset as quickly as possible. He nearly never loses twice in a row. Jovanka and I were just discussing as well, maybe we can only remember one or two occasions in which Magnus has lost 2 games in a row. He's in unfamiliar territory, the world champion, and this game, he needs to try and put some pressure on, needs to try and win, but it's not going to be easy, especially if he can't recover. Okay, meanwhile, we did see a trade of one set of bishops and white's queen now attacking black's knight. So that black knight can move, or it can be defended by a pawn, for example. And this position, yeah, still relatively balanced. The knight does move. But Magnus, he will try to create some imbalances a bit later on by pushing pawns. He's getting ready to do that. This pawn push just supports another pawn push next to it on the c-file. White's pawn will throw itself forward 2 squares there. And this is maybe a Magnus type of position more than a Duda type of position in general. So I like the opening choice for Magnus, but it's still early days. Black is rock solid at the moment.
Yeah, and I have to say that this little pawn move has actually never been played before, has been analysed in 2021. Could have been in November 2021. You never know.
By Magnus's team, or maybe Magnus himself, who knows?
It could have been by his team. So, I mean, this is the idea, you know, just to control the circuit of the knight sitting on the d6 square. But Duda, he just continues with his development. And I do feel that white's position, like you say, is slightly more comfortable.
Yeah, it's not a big thing here. We're not looking for big advantages. There won't be any incredible, spectacular kind of direct attacks like we saw Duda kind of win the last game with. But Magnus, he'll just be looking for those tiny little kind of progression signs. He'll just be stepping one pawn forward here and there, one knight forward here and there. The knight on the edge of the board for black, maybe he'll try and control that piece. A few small things, but maybe they'll add up to something bigger later in the game.
And I can tell you that on social media, there are quite a few people very excited for Jan Christoph Duda. You know, they're really cheering for him and this big comeback that he is making. And I just want to share with you a selfie from Dmitry Stanislav, who asks the question, what if Jan Christoph wins again? Amazing evening. Yeah, absolutely. If he wins again, it will be the first ever tie breaks we've seen on the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour 2022. Can you believe that we haven't seen a single tie break? And there's been quarterfinals, semi-finals. It's been pretty decisive so far.
It feels about time.
Yeah. And it would be nice if it actually went the whole way. And we got to Armageddon. And it's very critical because there, Magnus actually gets to choose what colour pieces he has.
Yeah, that's true.
And we have seen, you know, that some people have chosen the black pieces to have less time, but the quick players, they always choose white.
And Magnus is a quick player, and actually Jan Christoph, he only needs a draw in this game.
Exactly.
To take us to those tie breaks.
Yeah, and Duda just looking off to the right there, looking off at the ceiling, doing a bit of a Beth Harmon. That's because he's trying to remember what to do in this position. I'm pretty sure both players have studied, if not this exact position, then something pretty similar. So, yeah, he'll be familiar with the ideas. The black knight on the edge of the board can, for example, step back and just go and re-centralise itself. I've seen Duda do something actually very similar in almost an identical position. The black knight can also jump forward just to attack the white queen, but the knight will also be driven back there. I do remember quite a recent game, actually, between Dominguez and Duda, not using this move, this pawn move that you mentioned Magnus chose, but Dominguez actually beat Duda there in quite convincing fashion. So Duda has mixed experiences with this opening. And yes, black is solid, but you need to be accurate still, because also white's knights, they might look innocuous at the moment, but they could go towards the black king. Black's king lacking defenders. There are some, when I was analysing this opening, there are some variations where black has to find a series of only moves just to survive on the king side.
And were they natural moves?
No, that's why I chose. Actually, it was in the final round, or the penultimate round in my match against Niels Grandelius. I had been suffering as black throughout that entire match against Niels, and I thought, OK, maybe the Petrov defence, just be rock solid, try and hold the draw there, because a draw would have suited me. I was in the lead, but no, I just wasn't brave enough. This type of position I thought was too difficult for black to handle. And Magnus, meanwhile, making his move, he pushes forward. He's asking real questions of Duda.
Yeah, this is another trademark move from Magnus. You know, he loves to just see space on the wings, and he just likes to advance those pawns forward. He's very much a maximalist, and he really goes after this really good pawn structure where he controls the breaks, and he is the one in full control of how to push and when to push. It's a nice strategy. If I were Duda, what would you do? If I were Duda, I probably would capture the pawn.
Yeah, Duda's got an unpleasant decision. It's a bit of a dilemma. If you capture this pawn, as you mentioned, Ivanka, which is very natural, then white just replaces that with a pawn, and white will have 2 pawns in the centre of the board. Black will have none, so you lose some central influence. The other option, also not ideal, because white now, at some point, maybe we'll see a trade of rooks first, but white does have the option of stepping forward with a pawn, hitting black's knight in the centre of the board. White gains space there. I know you like that structure quite a lot, Ivanka. White can gain space. Also, as you mentioned, white does hold the key. If Magnus only needed a draw, he probably wants to win, but then at some point later we would see a trade of pawns in the centre. White is the one who can unlock that central tension anytime he wants. Duda, meanwhile, with this bishop retreat, that's a passive piece. And I'm expecting, I was going to say, Magnus, before deciding what to do with his pawn structure there, just to develop a piece, develop his bishop.
And he kind of keeps Duda guessing. Is he going to push forward with the pawn? That's something that Duda doesn't necessarily have to calculate, but he has to assess.
Yeah.
And
every turn for the next 5-6 moves, Duda will have to assess, as you mentioned, that white c-pawn stepping forward 1 square. Also, look at the 2 black knights. One of them is going to get attacked in a moment, maybe by a pawn. The other knight on the edge of the board now can't jump forward because this white bishop controls it. So that black knight might be forced to take a step back. I'm expecting Duda to do that maybe now on the next couple of turns.
And Tristan, from the same country as Jan Krzysztof Duda, Poland, donated $29. Juan Manuel from Spain donated $48. We are getting so close, you guys, to our goal of $150,000 in our fundraiser for UNICEF. Not much time left to raise that money, so please donate if you can. And in the auction, only 2.5 minutes left on our 2 items. The signed chessboard by Magnus Carlsen, current bid, $5,100. This is a unique item signed by perhaps the best chess player in history. And also our other signed item, the Airthings device, also signed by Magnus. Current bid, $1,025. 2 minutes left to make your bid. And thank you to everyone who is participating, both in the fundraiser and in the auction. All of the money goes to UNICEF's life-saving work in Ukraine. So thank you to everyone. And here goes Harry.
Here comes Harry. And no, Harry's not meeting Sally this time. Harry's going to meet the Black King. And Magnus is pushing Harry the H-pawn towards that Black King. And first, he's pushing back the Black Knight. Wow, Magnus, you mentioned the word maximalist. Ivanka, he's seizing space on both flanks, both sides of the board. This Black Knight now looks like it has to retreat. It's going to a bit of a sad square now, maybe near the Black King, and then white is going to push on both flanks, both sides of the board. Black is going to be really cramped, and this is the one thing I will mention. Duda, he had a success against Magnus in the last 2 games by playing really dynamic, really kind of firebrand type of chess. But he's gone back to a really solid passive approach. This opening is designed for black purely to achieve a draw, and it doesn't suit his style. He's got to a decent level in world chess, a very strong level, by kind of playing the Petrov defense, occasionally kind of taking these really passive negative decisions, but he looks so uncomfortable. Every time I see him play the Petrov, every time I see him kind of grovel for a draw, it's just not him. He maybe feeling a bit more uncomfortable now, maybe regretting his opening choice. It looks very one-sided, and it's a Magnus type of position, as I mentioned, more than a Duda type of position. So, yeah, I'm liking all these pawn pushes. Normally, you know me, Ivanka, I have commitment issues when it comes to pawn pushes. But here, I love the fact Magnus is gaining space on both flanks because Duda will be stretched later. OK, he jumps in, sacrificing a pawn. I was going to say he will be stretched with his defences, guarding both sides. So,
wait 1 second. Can you just not grab that pawn?
yeah, maybe there's a trick.
There is a trick, isn't it? So we do have to show that, right? So the whole point is that the queen there on d3 isn't protected. Loose pieces drop off. And you might be asking, yeah, but the d-line isn't open, so why is that relevant? But after knight takes knight, pawn takes knight, and if you do capture the pawn, rook takes pawn, then you can play knight takes pawn.
Yeah, really nice trick here. This is actually a fork. Whoops, not there. Attacking the queen, attacking the rook, and the pawn cannot obviously capture the black knight because the white queen drops off behind it. So actually, as Ivanka mentioned, once things open up, this pawn in the centre is pinned. It's as if it's not there. And the other key detail is that after knight takes pawn, white can give a check. Maybe Magnus was relying on this one, but this check can be met with a knight block. So no time to capture the black knight. And after white brings the rook across, it looks deadly. I think Magnus was relying on this, winning the black knight on the next turn. And the black king doesn't really want to come out of its hiding place as a defender. Maybe what Magnus missed is that the black pawn can step forward here, counterattacking against the white queen, kicking it off the same diagonal as the black king. And Duda just about, it's really scary. It's by the skin of his teeth, but just about safe in this position. So actually backtracking just a few more moves here when well, I was praising pushing Harry the H-pawn forward. Maybe Magnus missed a trick in not pushing this guy forward now. It might have been a bit different. And then only next move, pushing on the H-file. But Duda, yeah, this is why he's got to the top of world chess. He's really tricky. It's very hard to kind of control a game against him because he always finds these small tactics. And yeah, this pawn, maybe it cannot be captured. Maybe you're right, Ivanka, because knight takes knight, as mentioned. Rook takes is met by this really cool move, knight takes pawn. And suddenly, somehow, black is just about OK.
Yeah. Nice line there, and very neatly calculated by Duda. And, well, Ben de Groot noticing that Magnus looks much more stressed than Duda right now, and also includes a selfie. And Scott B. Robinson, well, he's still Team Magnus. He says, go Team Norway. And he's actually wearing one of these traditional Norwegian jumpers.
But with a chess design. They were actually made after Magnus became world champion.
That's actually the Norway chess jumper.
Yeah.
And they make a jumper especially for Norway chess.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
Very cool.
And finally, we do have, while the players are waiting, we do have a meme, this time from Rishabh Shah, who says the tables have turned suddenly. And there you see Duda looking all fierce, and there you see Magnus. We do like memes. We even don't mind them if you make them of ourselves.
Yeah.
Isn't that right, David?
Yeah. Whether I want them or not, memes. Yeah.
We had some fantastic memes after David beat Magnus at 10 years old in our charity challenge. And I also saw some GIFs of that reaction of these just incredible stuff. I loved your reaction there.
Thank you, Kaya. And maybe we'll see a reaction from one of these two players, whoever wins this match, because it's suddenly really tense.
Yeah.
They're going to be exploding with joy later on. So, yeah, I mean, Duda, with his last move, he's made me think that we might be headed towards tie breaks. Just a really cunning idea there. And look at Magnus, frustrated. I think Magnus is regretting, as I just mentioned, he could have kind of changed the move order of his last two moves, and he would have taken away this defensive resource from Duda, and Duda would have been purely on the defensive. It would have been quite one-sided. I think Magnus would have had a huge advantage there. But yeah, if you just stop focusing for 1 second against Duda, he will be able to trick you. He will be able to kind of change the momentum. He's very, very good at that in a game. And yeah, maybe he'll be the one exploding with joy if and celebrating if he wins this or holds this game.
I can't remember ever seeing Jan Christoph Duda sort of explode with emotions, because mostly I've seen him winning in over-the-board chess, so that could be the reason. But I'm wondering, you know, if he wins this match now, ooh.
Yeah, if I would be curious to see how he reacts if he won the whole event.
It'd be cool with
There'd
some
be
big
some
reaction.
chest thumping, some kind of yes, or would he just kind of give us a little I did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somehow I suspect that part of his success as a chess player is because he keeps his emotions under check. Because, okay, we have seen a capture of the central pawn, and so now we're expecting Duda to actually just take the pawn with the knight.
Yeah, black's knight on the edge of the board has to improve itself, and not only can it step back, it can take a pawn in the process. And this exact variation, this key line that we showed, this is the acid test of what Duda had planned. And there was so much pressure on the diagonal that you have to drive back the white queen. So that pawn pushed, white's queen has had to retreat. And Magnus does have some hints of an attack maybe against the black king at some point, utilising this e-file, and that is neutralised by Duda. His knight retreat, really, really nice strategy there. If all the rooks disappear, I think black would be safe. Also, white has an isolated pawn in the middle of the board, so long-term, black has decent chances. But Magnus decides, okay, he has to keep at least one set of rooks on the board. A trade of one pair is inevitable, as we see there, one set of rooks disappearing, but Magnus, with one rook at least, can focus on some weak pawns. And another very typical Magnus move, probing for some weaknesses, trying to test his opponent's kind of understanding of pawn structures just by pushing a pawn here. I don't think black necessarily wants to trade this set of pawns off, because that would open up further lines for white's pieces. So, yeah, really tense now. It's definitely balanced. It could go either way, but Duda survived the opening.
Yeah, he has survived the opening, and I actually think black has a great position. I would be very satisfied here. I mean, the only thing that would concern me if I had the black pieces, although it's fully under control right now, is that the black king is marginally open.
Yep.
You know, it's an exposed diagonal. But great knight, great defensive bishop. Bishop is working well on its starting square, ironically enough. And the rook is ready to get into the game, and it has some potentially very exciting open lines. And yesterday, it still made a huge impression on me what Pontus said about teaching chess, and how in some places in Africa they teach the chess pieces and how they move, and they liken them to animals.
Lion.
And I love that the rook is the rhino, and it just like stampedes across. A brilliant analogy.
Yeah, I agree. To have the pieces be animals, not only the knight, the horse, but all the other pieces as well.
It might be time for that rhino to step up and start stampeding. Black's rook, I'm expecting it to centralise itself, bring itself the whole way across, there we go, and attack white's queen. Also the most natural move in the position. Black now forcing the white queen back. I'm not sure which direction Magnus will choose. I'm assuming it will go back and line itself up with the rook. There we go. And black's rook now rock solid. This rhino holding the position together. And yeah, Magnus is running out of ideas here. Maybe he's created a few threats over the last few turns, but Duda holding everything with his pieces. And the one problem here I see for white, you know me, Jovanka, white's knight is a bit stuck. So at some point, Magnus needs to improve the white knight. Notice how the black f-pawn on the f6 square controls every square the white knight wants to jump into, at least in the black half. So just a very good strategy as well there, Duda, to control white's knight and its energy. Yeah, the white knight, I'm expecting at some point to go off to the h4 square behind Harry the h-pawn, just to re-centralise itself later on. That's actually a kind of manoeuvre Magnus also used in the World Championship match. But this one could turn. Duda has asserted full control, and if Magnus can't find anything over the next 2 or 3 moves, black is the one who can start thinking about a long-term advantage.
And we see Alan from Canada donating $33. I also saw Apo from Finland, and we've seen many people from Finland donating in our fundraiser for UNICEF, and we're so grateful for that. And it shows we have a lot of Finnish viewers. Are there a lot of Finnish grandmasters that you know about?
I can think of a couple.
I think of a very famous one is Heikki Westeren. Yeah, Heikki is he's actually a frequent visitor to Norway, and he was once arrested for going in Norway for spying. But he wasn't spying. He was just going for a walk in northern Norway. It was a chess tournament there with a colleague. And they were just like stumbling across. They were just like losing themselves in thought and just going for this walk between games. And the police were like, hang on a second, what are you doing here? This is military operation. So yeah, he got arrested, and they were like, well, he's a chess player, so they let him out.
Oh, wow, what a story.
I remember first meeting Heikki Western when I was really young. I think I was like 10, 11 years old, and I thought, wow, this guy's old. But he was a great chess player, and he's still going strong. I still see him occasionally playing in the tournaments.
How cool.
Yeah, so some great Finnish players.
Yeah.
Yeah, big hello to Finland.
Yeah.
And to everyone also donating. You can still donate. We are aiming for $150,000. Use this QR code or go to,
chess24.com/donate.
There you have it. All right, a couple of moves.
A couple of moves, and actually Black's queen, bit sneaky there, brought itself to the top of the board, eyeing up White's h-pawn, the white pawn on the edge, and White had to defend it. White's queen reactivating itself, but that has allowed Black to dive into the position with the Black rook. This rook on the second rank. We love rooks on the second rank in general, especially if you're Black, the 7th rank for White. But here the Black rook attacking a couple of things that are defended currently. So I must admit I'm a bit surprised by this one. I think Duda's idea at some point is to bring the Black queen down and offer up a trade of queens. But White's king, for example, can try to evict this Black rook. I'm expecting Magnus now just to... There we go. Taking the words out of my mouth again. And now there's some pressure on the Black rook. The Black queen is a bit overloaded right now, defending its rook, defending some pawns. So I'm expecting the rook to retreat, and Duda, okay, maybe just accepting his last move wasn't that effective. He just forced Magnus to burn a little bit of time and waste a little bit of kind of energy deciding what to do with the White king, and just deciding, okay, time to retreat. Nothing wrong with that. No harm done to Black's position. Yes, he lost a couple of moves, but White not gaining too much in the process. White's knight now, as I mentioned, needs to relocate itself. The dance that Magnus did with his knight started with this move, and then it kind of came back to the G2 square and then re-centralized itself. That's what he did against Nepomniachtchi in the same opening, actually, in the Petrov defense from last year's World Championship match.
Yeah. So maybe it's a good idea for Duda, just to actually step forward with the rook and attack the dark square bishop. Or is this a little bit problematic?
Yeah, it looks definitely possible. Yeah. The Black rook just doing a bit of a yo-yo, just dropping down, then going up, dropping down, then going up. So Black's rook could come down to the second rank now that White's knight has kind of gone away, as you mentioned there, Jovanka, from the defense of its bishop. White's bishop is loose, and as we've seen a couple of times today, loose pieces are big targets.
I heard that yo-yos, they come back in out of fashion every 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's actually correct. I have like a yo-yo hang-up every like 5 year-ish year. Yeah.
It was really popular when I was a kid.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, we had these kind of like, the Coca-Cola company used to kind of sell one with Fanta, one with Sprite, and we were crazy about them. And we'd collect them and we'd do all these kind of tricks. And we thought it was so cool. And then I remember one was walk the dog.
Yeah,
I could do this one.
Too. Maybe that should be our next challenge, you guys.
Is it the one where you build it and then you just goes in and out of the...
No,
that's a cool one too.
No, you literally just...
Yeah, it rolls on the floor basically. Yeah,
and then you kind of pick it up. And anyhow.
I will put my money on Jovanka winning our yo-yo challenge. Sounds like
it's
you're
been
skilled.
a long time since I've done these things, So
it comes back, as soon as you
Is
get
it like
a
riding a
yo-yo.
bicycle?
Yeah.
I haven't even ridden a bicycle for a long time.
Oh, me too, actually.
Do you want to know a secret, guys? My deepest, darkest, dirtiest secret.
You don't know how to ride.
I don't know how to ride a bicycle.
Is that
I've
so?
never sat on a bicycle in my life, apart from at the gym where it's fixed. So one day.
Wow.
Anyway, oh no, I shouldn't have said. Anyway, that's not going to be a challenge. We're going to go back to the position because we saw a couple of moves. Black's queen sidestepping and White's queen retreating. There was a bit of tension there, some indirect threats against White's queen, and Magnus just trying to maintain control. It's still very cagey, still balanced, but neither side flinching or giving way so far.
Well, something that is going completely crazy is the auction for the signed chessboard. Current bid, $8,400. I think there are a couple of people in a big fight to get their hands on this unique historical chessboard, and all money will go to UNICEF, so it's for a great cause as well. Currently 4 minutes left. Whenever someone makes a new bid, a little more time is added. But I'm just going to say thank you to the people in that fight to get their hands on that chessboard. Cool.
That's insane. Yeah. Thank you. I had to give everyone who's contributed, everyone who's bid on any one of these objects, thank you so much. Thank you for being part of this chess community. to do something noteworthy, to do something amazing for the children and the people of Ukraine.
Absolutely.
You know, it means so much.
Yeah.
I really am touched. I
agree. It's fantastic. What we've seen from the chess community basically over the last month after the crisis in Ukraine, $147 is currently what we have been able to fundraise for UNICEF. Our goal is $150,000. And we have a move. Is this still cagey, or you look a little surprised?
Yeah, still cagey, but I think Magnus will be happy with the developments over the last move. It hasn't changed the evaluation too much, but I'm surprised to see Duda retreat his knight, and also White's bishop, which was a bit of a, I don't want to say useless piece, but a bit of a limp piece there, not really doing too much. It has some threats. It wants to eliminate the black knight. One thing White would love to do is trade his bishop for the black knight. Black's knight is the key piece. Duda cannot allow that piece to be exchanged. But if we jump in, Magnus has kind of tricked Duda, and it was just because Duda, I think, was at a loss of what to do. Maybe Duda could just sit still. I know his queen just came from the square, but he could retreat the queen, just say, OK, I've built this kind of wall, this barrier, you're not breaking through. And I think Magnus would have run out of ideas, but he stepped back with the knight, maybe trying to attack this pawn. And now Magnus has said, you go backwards, I go forwards. That's something I picked up from Jovanka. And the white bishop has gone forward. Previously, it couldn't do this, and now it's guaranteed to trade itself off. That was White's worst piece. It's going to trade itself off either for Black's very strong knight or the bishop behind it. And the reason this is possible is because if Duda grabs this pawn now, then White's bishop will jump forward, make this exchange, and after a trade, we could see a couple of moves. For example, White can take this pawn, or White can even jump in with his knight first. And suddenly, I think Black would be a bit nervous. The queen has to retreat. She's under fire. And suddenly, some big attacks coming against the Black king. Maybe Black's OK here. Some calculation needed, but Black is really playing with fire. The queen and the knight combined, threatening checkmate. And remember that rhyme, knights on f5 will thrive. It's coming into effect now. And I don't think Duda should grab this pawn. I think he will live to regret his greed if he does take it. I think maybe it's time to start thinking about bringing the knight back to the center. But again, similar problem. We'll see a trade of bishops, and at some point, White's knight will re-enter the fray using this great f5 square.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this position, and I agree with you completely. It was the wrong piece to retreat, and I think that Duda just miscalculated. I think somehow in his head he just thought, well, you know, I will capture the pawn, and he totally forgot that bishop takes knight, and his pawn also on c6 is hanging, and the white knight is an amazing piece, especially in conjunction with the queen. So I mean, it's not a great choice. No. And I think this is what happens when you slip up. We see kind of like small inaccuracies, and the opponents have been given a chance to make life uncomfortable. Oh, and we've seen queen takes pawn. Okay.
You said he should not do that, David.
I mean, maybe he's OK. We'll see over the next few moves. But this one, he's got to walk a tightrope now. He's got to be super accurate on every move. OK, the evaluation was slightly in White's favour, not too much. I think his idea, Duda, is that if the white knight jumps in, he does have one move, maybe, that I underestimated. Instead of the black queen going back the whole way, allowing this type of attack that I mentioned against the black king, maybe his idea is to try and trade queens. And maybe he's safe here. The queen steps back, now offering up this trade, of course. And if White does sidestep, then turn around. The black queen can actually use the corner square to deliver checkmate. So actually, with this idea, Black can force the queens off. And maybe with the queens off, you can survive. It's still a bit scary for Black, to be honest, just because Black has so many weak pawns. And also, White's rook could enter the 7th rank. But maybe you're OK here. As Black, this bishop does defend everything that this white knight will throw at you. So, OK, maybe it's fine. And in the current position, this has got to be his idea. Duda stepping back with the queen. Otherwise, I do think he's in big, big trouble. He's got to seek solace in the endgame.
Yeah. And this is a really, really crazy position. I was actually attracted to just grabbing material and then just kind of saying, yeah, you know what, the queen and knight better than the queen and bishop, simple chess, which was also quite an interesting approach. Instead, I agree with you, only really one move to save the game. And I do have to share with you a tweet whilst we're waiting for Duda to find the queen stepping back to the d5 square. And it seems to me that pets are either like they love chess or they hate chess. And OK, the queen does step back to a critical square. And Asics Machinen says, his dog is saying, or their dog is saying, please play with me instead of watching chess.
That's cute.
And it is cute.
Yeah.
Pets love chess, hate chess. What do you think?
I hope most love chess. We do know a few chess players who do love their pets as well. So it's a mutual kind of relationship there. But yeah, I'm sorry. I hope that pet isn't feeling too left out because of us.
I'm not sure if either of these two have pets. I don't think Magnus has any pets.
No.
Duda? I'm not sure.
It's difficult for chess players with their lifestyle.
Right. Traveling
all the time. I mean, you've got to travel across the world regularly, not just for a couple of days. It's 2 weeks at a time, 3 weeks at a time. These guys played at the World Cup. Both of the two players, they were in Russia for almost a month. So, yeah, I mean, it's just not, unfortunately, fitting with the lifestyle. There are some exceptions, however, like, as we saw, Levon Aronian, very, very fond of his dog, Ponchik, and Wesley So with his cats.
Nepomniachtchi with his dog and cat.
I think
Richie.
you need a good support network, a big family around you to look after the pets when you're on the road, when you're on the tour. So, okay. Neither of these two players, I think, at the stage where they, I mean, they're just fully focused on chess, basically. I don't think they have time, unfortunately, for pets right now.
And the clock is ticking for Magnus. This is a super dramatic game. Magnus Carlsen, he has to win it if he wants to avoid tie breaks. Any other result means we will head to tie breaks to decide the winner of the Charity Cup. But I'm also keeping my eye on our charity auction. 9 seconds left on the chessboard. Current bid, $8,600. And I'm just updating to see if that will be the final bid, because I know there is a little bit of a battle going on. Okay, now it says closed auction, meaning the signed chessboard by Magnus Carlsen finally went for $8,600. All money going to UNICEF. I mean, that must be the most expensive chessboard ever.
Yeah, I'm impressed, and we're just lucky to have such generous viewers. It's going to a good cause, of course, and I mean, the chessboard in your home is going to be a great talking point for any guests.
Yeah, that's incredible.
I wonder if they will actually play on it, or if they will be like just
hung on the wall.
Yeah. How will it be used? Well, congratulations anyway to the one who eventually won this auction, getting an historical piece, a very unique chessboard signed by world champion Magnus Carlsen. Wow, impressive stuff. All right, we do have a few moves on the board.
We do have a few moves. As mentioned, the queens were destined to trade off for each other. There was no way Magnus could have avoided that. As we showed, there was a nasty checkmate if Magnus had run away from a queen trade. And that meant that Black was able to escape in the endgame, and Black is one pawn up temporarily. Magnus can go and win a pawn back with his rook at some point in the near future. First, he has to remove his knight. And remember, Magnus, for him, a draw is the same as a loss, so he might as well keep pieces on the board. Trading his knight off for the black bishop would have just ended in a dead-drawn rook endgame. So Magnus tries to keep his winning chances, his tiny, slim winning chances alive by keeping this knight versus bishop in balance. And what do you think, Jovanka? Knight over bishop, we've talked about that a few times this tournament.
Yeah, it's been a common theme, actually. Every single day it's been like, which one is better, the knight or the bishop? In this particular case, I have to say I do quite like the knight, but it's only because, you know, the White's rook is so active, and also White has a very dangerous passed pawn on the edge of the board. And I can see a scenario where this is going to be something that troubles Duda considerably.
Yeah. The big question is, should Black get greedy here and temporarily go 2 pawns up? Could Black get greedy and maybe even push the Black B pawn down 1 square? Big decision for Duda, not much time to make it, but let's quickly jump in just to show how both sides are going to try and end this game. Duda wants to trade off these 2 pieces, and then he's safe. Even if Magnus wins his pawn back, as long as it's level number of pawns, if these pieces disappear, Duda will never, ever lose. But it's not easy to do that. If you chase the knight away, bring your bishop in, for example, the white knight can move. You can even maybe flick in an annoying check first. This has happened. I was going to say the other option, push this pawn down, keep it alive just a little bit longer. But again, maybe this pin just too annoying on the 7th rank. And the third option would have been getting greedy and taking this pawn with the black rook, but this is playing with fire, the black rook offside for a few more moves. So Duda decided to indeed challenge this white knight in the center, trade it off to get safe and closer to the draw, but White saying no, the knight jumping forward, and you have to be a bit careful with this black rook right now. You don't want to slide it back 1 square, attack attacking the knight, because you have to look out for knight forks. Don't keep your pieces too close to your king when a knight is on the board, because a check and a fork wins the black rook. So that being said, Duda has to decide what to do. I was going to say, maybe now is the time to capture this pawn. He says no. He goes and challenges Magnus to defend the f2 point in front of the white king. How to guard this? There's no way to protect it. You have to advance this pawn, and Magnus steps his pawn forward. Now Duda, surely, before this rook gets trapped, it's running out of escape squares. Maybe it's time to go and grab Harry, grab the h5 pawn. At least then, after you do take it, you do have an escape route with the black rook. Yes, the pawns on the other side will fall as a consequence, but I think this bishop, you can find a safe square for it. Maybe just drop it back one square. And yes, the black rook might look a bit clumsy in this type of position, but black is a pawn up. So still very, very tense in the position. Magnus taking big risks to try and win this game.
Wow, he wants to avoid tie breaks, actually. But will he be a big favorite in tie breaks with faster time controls? Or is Jan Christoph Duda a player that can, you know, play some nice blitz chess as well?
He can definitely play some good blitz chess. I've played him a few times online in blitz, Duda, and he's really dangerous. Yeah. It's so hard to avoid his tactics. I think strategically Magnus far better in blitz, but it's hard with no time on the clock to contain your opponent's activity. And also remember, these guys kind of fought it out for a World Blitz title a few years ago. Both sides were kind of chasing each other. Magnus was half a point ahead with like 8 games to go, 7 games to go, and then they both won the remaining games. Duda was chasing him the whole way, and Duda got silver at the World Blitz Championship. So one of the best blitz players in the world. It's going to be, especially if he holds this game. The momentum's on Duda's side as well.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, we did announce that the chessboard was sold for $8,600. I was wondering, is it the most expensive chessboard in the history? Answer is no, of course. There is a chess set made from 18-karat white gold, insert with more than 500 carats of diamonds and some, you know, bunch of diamonds and stuff, priced at $4 million. So it's a little bit more expensive. But, I mean, this one, in a few years, could be worth so much money with the signature of Magnus Carlsen.
It might have gold and diamonds, but it's not signed by Magnus.
Exactly. And I also Googled the most expensive signed items in history. George Washington's Act of Congress, $9.8 million. A little bit more expensive, but in 10th place, a signed newspaper by John F. Kennedy, $39,000. I mean, we're not too far behind.
No, actually not 8,000, not that far behind. 39, and as the chess gets more and more popular, you know, the value of this signature
exactly
gonna go up.
Ah, definitely.
Magnus's legacy is just starting, it feels like. I mean, he's still got many years at the top. Already one of the greatest players in history.
Yeah, huge congratulations to whoever won the auction, and thanks to everyone who participated. A bunch of moves. The big question, can Magnus Carlsen win this game? Any other results? And we will head to tiebreak.
He's trying his best. He's doing some really weird and wonderful stuff, Magnus. He's put his knight on the top of the board. Jovanka, you're frowning at me. Are you surprised?
I don't like it at all. I mean, for white. I mean, look at it. Now the rook has come down to the second row. King is cut off. The knight and the rook, not dangerous at all. And I think that it is the white pawn on b3, which I kind of thought, wow, that's going to be an asset one day. And actually, the players are probably going to repeat
We're about to see a result. It is a draw. Magnus on the brink of defeat there, actually. He took the draw, and we are headed to tiebreaks.
And Magnus